Hello, this is John from caveofprogramming.com, and in this tutorial we're going to look at setting bean properties from parameters. So I'm going to create a new JSP page here, and let's call it beanparam.jsp. And in this page here I'm going to create a new bean. I'm going to say JSP use bean, let's type that again, try to get the autocomplete working here. So JSP use bean, there we go, and I'll set the ID to user 5 just because I've used user 4 already, and a class I'm going to set to my existing bean class that I've created, which is beans.user, and I'll set the scope to page because the stuff I want to show you can be demoed perfectly well on one page, although of course you could set the scope to session, and you normally would, or application or request. So now we've seen already that you can set a property on a bean like this. You say JSP set property, and you need to specify a name for that which has to match your bean. So I'll say user 5, and I'll say property here equals, and my user class has a email property, and it has a password property. If we look at this here, so I'm gonna try to set the password property, and I'm going to set the value to let me in. And now I'm just going to echo back that property here, so I'll say % equals user 5 dot get password. That should do the trick. So if I run this now, we expect to see, in fact I've got the, yeah, that's correct. Okay, so now we're seeing, of course, the property that I just set. Let's go back to beanparam.jsp, because instead of specifying a value, I can say param and name a parameter. Like, by parameter I mean a URL parameter in this case. So I'm saying here param equals p, and now let's run this, and this says null. But if the page is passed a parameter called p, or it could be something longer like password if you like, but often URL parameters are quite small, and let's just say hello, and you can see that the bean property has been set from the parameter in the URL. Now if I miss off this param thing here and I don't specify a value either, so all I've said is property equals password. Let's just run that. This actually defaults to allowing you to set the property using a parameter with the same name as the property. So I can say here password equals let me in, and there you go, it's set. And let's set the email as well. So in fact, there's one last thing that I want to show you here, which is that if you specify star for the property here, that will look for any parameters in the URL, or it could be from post data, which we're going to look at in a future tutorial, which match properties in the bean, and it will set any of the corresponding properties. So I'm saying property equals star, and I want to just echo back here user dot get email, which is the other property that I have on this bean. So let's say get email. There we go. So now if I run this, so I've said just use bean and set property name equals user 5, name of the bean, the ID of the bean, and property equals star, and I'm going to run this. Now we've got null and null for those two values that I'm outputting. But if I say here email equals john at cave of programming.com. Now we've set the email property, and of course you could, if you had session scope, you could then use that being elsewhere. And let's say also so we'll have another parameter, password equals let me in, and now we've set the password property as well. Now you might be wondering what that's useful for, and we're going to look shortly at forms, which is an extremely important topic, of course, in Servlet and JSP programming, or in web programming of any kind in general. And we're going to see how you can use this to collect the information from a form, which you can then process elsewhere in your application. So that's it for this tutorial, and until next time, happy coding.